Yep.
Welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 61. This is going to be a one trip show, mostly because I still haven't done a whole lot since my surgery. So this would be a flashback to May 2007, a trip I took across the Southwest. As usual, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to jump in. Easiest way to unmute yourself is hit your space bar on your computer, ask your question, and then release the space bar. So back in May 2007, my brother and I flew into Phoenix, and we immediately headed north to Flagstaff, the Santa Fe Transcon route, which is now BNSF. And the Transcon's pretty busy usually. We had no shortage of trains going through. This 280 was on display not far from the depot. And here we see a train going west with a Ferromex locomotive from Mexico running second out. Now, most of our trip was designed to go east, but we went west anyhow for a little bit. And we caught up with this train with a Ferromex engine at Fort Navajo. And I drove up onto the overpass over the tracks, and sort of parked on the overpass. And the Army base is just off to our right here. And waiting for the train to come, and I could see a guy up in the guard tower with his binoculars out, giving us the, looking at us. I'm like, uh-oh. But anyhow, train showed up, and shortly after getting the shot here, somebody from the base showed up. What are you doing? Taking train pictures. Okay. Where are you going now? I said, I don't know, maybe the Grand Canyon Railway. He said, no, I mean right now. I said, oh, right now, just to bomb the bridge to turn around and go back out of here. I'm not hanging around. So let us go. So off we went. Picking up some BNSF trains on the way. We wound up at a place called Maine. Railroad name is Maine, near Parks, Arizona. Nice grade coming up here. Trains running around each other going west. Another eastbound coming up out of the hole. And that westbound was waiting. There's our Ferromex engine again, coming out. We're not very far from Williams, Arizona here. So indeed, we wound up at Williams at the Grand Canyon Railway. And they were running their F40 and a B unit on their passenger train. Here's the train after it got back in from the Grand Canyon, I think, turning on the Y, heading back towards the shop. In the background is the P-line. The Santa Fe Transcon, ex-Santa Fe Transcon, bypasses this now on the Crookton cutoff. The P-line comes into Williams and then heads south and goes down to Phoenix. There's the Grand Canyon F40. And here comes our Ferromex train on the P-line. I guess he's a Phoenix-bound train. We finished at the Grand Canyon, went back east again, back to Flagstaff. The Southwest Chief was due to come in after dark. You can see the passengers are in the depot, anxiously awaiting the arrival of the Southwest Chief. And finally it showed up. We got a few shots and then headed for bed. Next morning, we started off outside of Flagstaff, but our goal was to get up to Page, Arizona, to chase the Black Mesa and Lake Powell. That's an isolated railroad. It's not connected to anything else in the national rail system. It runs from a coal mine to the power plant in Page. And if you're going from Page out to the coal mine, the first 2/3 of it or so run through away from the highway, hard to get to. Not impossible, but hard to get to. But then the final third or so of it comes right up alongside of a US highway. So our plan was to go out to where the US highway and the railroad intersect. And then if we were lucky, as we were heading towards the mine, we'd see a train coming out, or maybe we'd run into a train at the mine. And then just chase it back out again. But we got even luckier than that. We pulled up alongside the tracks, looked behind us, and the train from Page was just coming down the hill. So we had the entire chase to the mine ahead of us. Here's the Black Mesa and Lake Powell. 4 locomotives, all electrics. The first and third are former NDM, National Railway of Mexico. Second and fourth are painted in the Black Mesa and Lake Powell's paint scheme. This railroad is now all gone. It ran on Indian land, and the tribes wanted them out. So the whole thing is shut down. So here we are chasing the train to the mine. It just come down from those hills behind the photo here. And they had to stop here. I don't know why they stopped, but the engineer got off. We've been talking to him for a while. And he clued us in. He said, if the highway and the railroad separate, he says, you're going back up the main highway. It's all Bureau of Land Management land, so it's all fenced off on both sides. But he said, if you look at the fences where the dirt roads go through the fence, you see a great big number attached to a signpost next to the gate. That is the railroad milepost that dirt road leads into. They're there for the maintenance of way guys. So they know where to go down to get to the tracks at the right spot. So now we knew how to access the railroad in the middle of nowhere. Continuing our chase to the mine. Did really well on this day here. Might have preferred one of their own engines on the point, but take what you can get. And here it is approaching the mine. The crew also told us that it would take them about an hour and 15 minutes to load the entire train. It loads pretty fast. So it went to the mine. We waited for it to come back out again. And the chase was on, heading back up the Page. Pace shot taken from the car window. So we paralleled the train near Cow Springs, Arizona. When you get back into the hills, some pretty nice scenery. That last shot was from the overhead bridge just before it goes to the power plant at Page. That ended our chase. So we went to Darling, Arizona.
Yes, Steve. The
Yes.
only thing that's left out there now is the railroad tracks. They took down all the overhead wire.
Okay.
It's just the railroad tracks.
This is Darling, Arizona. Railroad name is Darling. Everybody else knows it as Winona on Route 66. The San Francisco peaks in the background. And we stayed here as the sun put a golden glow on everything towards the evening. Once again, we're back on the BNSF X Santa Fe Transcon here, which is a very busy railroad. Still at Darling. And finally, the sun drops behind the San Francisco peaks to finish off our day here. Day 3, we're starting off in Winslow, Arizona, at the Amtrak station. This day we would spend entirely on the Transcon. First thing was the eastbound Southwest Chief coming in. Here it is. This is the Jackrabbit Trading Post in Jackrabbit, Arizona on Old Route 66. We stay here, got a few trains, including with the giant Jackrabbit. Little bunnies on top of the sign were falling off. I did search the ground at the base of the sign to see if one of the bunnies was laying there on the ground. I could snag for a souvenir, but there weren't any down there. This is the Cholla power plant. Best we could do is get a shot through the fence. This is, I think, St. Joseph, Arizona. And no, I'm mistaken. We didn't spend the entire day on the Transcon. This was, they went down to the Apache, went down to their shop at Snowflake, Arizona. The Apache is famous because it runs a fleet of beautiful Alco-built locomotives. And they headed out from Snowflake, heading up to the BNSF interchange up at Holbrook, Arizona. So away we went chasing the Apache with these four gorgeous, well, they're everybody calls them Alcos. I think technically they're actually Montreal Locomotive Works, built in Canada, on Alco designs. Got to Holbrook, along the Transcon again. You see a Route 66 dinosaur in the background there on the right-hand side. And of course, the Wigwam Motel where you can sleep in a teepee. The Apache was switching the interchange, ready to go back to Snowflake. We still had some time to get some more BNSF stuff before they headed back. And here we see those dinosaurs out on Old Route 66. And the Apache was underway. A lot of Alco smoke heading back to Snowflake. Everything between the road and the tracks was gated, but we made the determination, don't know if it was right or wrong, we made the determination that most of the land beyond the gate was Bureau of Land Management land. So we opened the gates, went through, shut the gates behind us, down to the tracks, got our shots, and then came back out and shot the gates, closed the gates behind us as we went out. This is the big S curve coming into Snowflake where the railroad shop is located. From there, back up to the Transcon, go all the way out west, and we wind up seeing Norfolk Southern Power leaving the train. Pure set of BNSF or Burlington Northern Cascade Green, really unusual to find at that point in time. And the sun went down on day 3. Okay, day 4, this is going to be, I think, hope, maybe, an all Transcon day. We're now working our way towards New Mexico. Once again, we get the Southwest Chief. Transcon was still all of these searchlight signals back then, but of course, back then, searchlight signals weren't exactly on the endangered list yet. So we didn't really make a whole lot of effort to try to find locations with the searchlights. Looking back, that was a mistake. We should have shot some more of the searchlight signals. There's some gorgeous, gorgeous territory out there. Here's a rather beat up ex Santa Fe war bonnet locomotive leading this train here. Norfolk Southern, fourth out. And it's maybe the only Oakway, the old EMD lease fleet that we saw on the trip. Used to find these all over the place in the Powder River Basin. Clouds are starting to move in now. There's our battered war bonnet again. And we wound up near Albuquerque, where the New Mexico Rail Runner has commuter trains both north and south out of the city. The Rail Runner is by far and away my favorite paint scheme on a commuter railroad in the United States. Here you see two of the rail runners meeting. Hard to beat that paint scheme, it really is. We wound up in Isleta, which is on the grounds of the Isleta tribe. And while we were down here, tribal police showed up. We were parked back beyond that red signal down there, sort of like in near the junction between the rail runner, and this is the Amtrak line here. That's the Southwest Chief again. We were parked down by that signal, and tribal police showed up. And you don't really mess with tribal police. And apparently they have had problems with people stealing metal from the maintenance yard here from the railroad. So they said, well, we're going to take your information. They called for backup first. So we had two cars down there. So we'll take your information. If you check out, you'll be escorted off the property. I'm like, okay. So they ran our licenses, came back. Okay, you check out, go out the same way you came in. I'm thinking, well, that's not very dramatic. I wanted to be escorted off the property. I was picturing like cop cars ahead of us and behind us with their lights going, taking us off the property. Just drive out. That's really anticlimactic. Day 5, we're still on the rail runner. We're up at Bernalillo on the north end of the line. This is the line that goes over Raton Pass.
I like the cars that go beep beep when the doors open and close.
Yes. This is the line that goes over Raton Pass. The only thing that uses it are the rail runners south of Santa Fe. And the rest of the line to the north is only used by Amtrak, even though it's a BNSF line. There was one semaphore back then still standing below Santa Fe. This one here at Sandoval. Above Santa Fe, there were still plenty of semaphores at this time. And there's still a handful of them up there even now. Here's the former Santa Fe Depot in downtown Albuquerque. Now we're up into the semaphore country on the Raton line. Here's the Southwest Chief going through a set of blades. Same train, just a few minutes later. This is the westbound. And then he met the eastbound. So he chased the eastbound back. Here's the eastbound train. And we got him at the blades at I can't think of these things.
Glorietta.
No, it's not Glorietta. Pretty popular set of blades, and it just escapes me right now.
Blanchard,
Nope. Back down to get the rail runner by that one lone blade. And another rail runner meet. Day 6 started off back on the rail runner. It was a miserable day, and I'd gotten this shot a couple times already. So I decided to try something a little bit different and just blurred the train going past the semaphore. Back at downtown Albuquerque, back at the depot again. I like the little kiosks with the hats there. Santa Fe Freight House has neon on it. Of course, did I go down there after dark and shoot this? No, but I would also guess that at the time it probably wasn't functioning. We headed further east. Our big destination this day was going to be Abo Canyon. But they had just started to do the construction on double tracking, I think. And as you can see, there's a gate behind that tree down there, below the fourth stack car. A lot of access was cut off here. I had been there previously when you could go anywhere in the canyon and get shots. So the access was very limited here. So we wound up on the overhead bridge on the east end of Abo Canyon and pretty much just hung out there for the day. A little bit of rain was beginning to fall. You can see the gates there again. Used to be able to get real good access back into the canyon. We continued eastward, heading through New Mexico in the rain. Met this train here with one of the BNSF executive painted locomotives on it. They were getting pretty scarce at the time also, along with the war bonnets, and I'm not sure any of them even left anymore. We wound up in Vaughn, New Mexico. And at Vaughn, the Santa Fe Transcon crosses over a Southern Pacific north-south line that runs down into El Paso. So here's where we stopped our eastward march on the Transcon. And we turned south at Vaughn after getting a couple of last BNSF trains. Here's the Southwest Division's logo for BNSF. Back then it was BNSF Railway at the time, but they had just changed their official name from Burlington Northern and Santa Fe Railway to BNSF Railway. But the old logo was still there. Here we are heading south on the SP, heading down towards El Paso. Once again, we're in the rain here. Military move going out there on the head end. Kind of cool to get Southern Pacific Power leading the train on this line here, because by this time it was all Union Pacific. This is in Corozzoso, New Mexico. We wound up chasing this train a little bit under stormy skies. This is several miles out of Corozzoso, but there's so few towns out there. I still label it as Corozzoso. That brought us into El Paso for day 7. We were down by the border quite a bit, and saw quite a few customs agents roll past us in cars. They never said boo. Tower and the station in El Paso. Once again, a freight house with used to have neon on it. And a train going out of El Paso. We found this cool water tank in Fort Henry, Texas, just east of El Paso. And then we continued on east. Our goal was Paisano Pass, out near Alpine, Texas. And we got out here a bit frustrated because all the roads to the tracks were either ranch land roads or railroad access roads that were posted. Having a heck of a time finding a place to shoot a train on public property. So this train goes by, and we're actually on a railroad access road here. And about half an hour later, we're still in the same spot. Texas sheriff shows up. And it's the TV version of a Texas sheriff. Tall, skinny guy, white button-down shirt, cowboy hat, skinny blue jeans, boots, big belt buckle, just badge, the whole 9 yards. So we get talking to him. He says, "Yeah," he says, I was down in the office, and the railroad phoned you, radioed you guys in." He said, "So I wanted to get out of the office. I just like out here and see what you guys were up to." Okay, so we came out. We're chatting with him, and he's like, "Yeah," he said, I got only like 4 deputies to cover 7,000 square miles out here." Okay, well, this train here came by. We're still on railroad property, but now the train rolls by, and we photograph it with the sheriff standing right next to us. And he said, "Well, I got to get back to the office now." I said, "Well, we're kind of having trouble finding places to get to the tracks out here." He said, "Everything seems to be railroad roads or ranch roads." He goes, "Well," he says, "there's a pretty good road up about 3 miles back to the west." He says, "You can get to the tracks pretty easily there." He said, "But then again," he said, that's a railroad road, but however," he said, "that road is 3 miles to the west, and my office is 7 miles to the east, and I have to get back to the office now." So off he went to the office and left us out to shoot trains. Didn't see many trains out here. This is actually still further east of Alpine, getting down towards, I think it's Marathon, Texas. Our day on Paisano Pass didn't go as well as we had hoped. Wound up back in El Paso. That water tank down at Fort Henry still intrigued me. And the train went east of El Paso, so he scooted down to Fort Henry and shot, trying to go on past the water tank there. Then we turned back to the west, following the ex-Southern Pacific Sunset route, which is now Union Pacific, back across New Mexico. We're still in El Paso here. Here's that tower you saw earlier from an overhead bridge. And there's the depot. Another Ferromex unit behind the Union Pacific power there. And another one of the ex-Santa Fe war bonnets. This is in St. Joseph, New Mexico, the Southwestern Railway. A couple of GP30s. And this ex-Southern Pacific 060 is on display, and I believe, not Vaughn. Deming, New Mexico. Here's the Southwest Chief Amtrak train.
Sunset Limit.
Sunset Limited, yes. What'd I say?
Southwest Chief.
No, you're right. Sunset, I got Santa Fe on the mind still. Sunset Limited. Thank you, Chris. This is in Steins, New Mexico. This shot here is taken sort of off the interstate. It's a place where the interstate runs east and west. East is off to the right, west is off to the left. A road comes up from the south, crosses the interstate, but then kind of dead ends here. So if it crosses the interstate, there's a T intersection. There's no road that continues on north. And you got ramps on both sides, the off ramp to your right, the on ramp to your left. We're parked up here at the end of the road between the two ramps, right next to the guardrail. And darn if a New Mexico state trooper doesn't pull out. What are you guys up to? Well, taking train pictures. Well, he said, you're parking a place where they hand off drugs all the time. Like, wonderful. So then he sees the radio antenna on top of the car. He says, what do you got a radio for? And I have no idea what the scanner laws are in New Mexico. Some states they're kind of illegal, other states they're totally illegal, other states they're just fine. So I didn't know what the scanner law was in New Mexico, so I just told the truth, explained it to him. Listening to the radio, explained to him about hot box detectors and hearing the dispatcher talk and stuff like that. And he was fine with that. So eventually off he went and left us to shoot our trains around Steins. But now by this point here, we had been to Arizona and gotten stopped by police at Fort Navajo. We had been to New Mexico, gotten stopped by police at Isla. We had been to Texas, had a visit from the sheriff in Texas, back into New Mexico, state cop in New Mexico. So now I was bound and determined to get stopped by the cops in Arizona on the way back again. We had to go for the cycle. It just wouldn't be right if we didn't get stopped in Arizona. We had to get them all. But anyhow, we're still in New Mexico here at Steins. It's kind of like a salt flat here that kind of reflected the late afternoon sun pretty neat. And sunset in New Mexico. Day 9, we're still on the sunset route. Now we're heading back across Arizona. At least you will be shortly. Might still be in New Mexico at this point here. And the sunset route will take you into Tucson if you stick with it. This is actually the Dragoon Mountains outside of Benson, Arizona. Some neat twisty turny railroad in these parts here. Of course, you go all the way out west and you see Norfolk Southern Power leading the train. A little more proper Union Pacific power on this train. There's our rental car way down below. I guess I actually walked up the hillside here for this shot. And this is near Vail, Arizona. This is actually the same railroad. The Sunset route, for the most part, is double track. But east of Vail, the two lines separate. The grades are totally different on each line. And at one point, the two lines actually cross over each other. So here we see a eastbound train crossing over the westbound main. And we wind up in Willcox, Arizona. The statue is of Rex Allen Sr. Who was Rex Allen, you ask? He was a cowboy singer back in the 50s, but he was probably most famous because he was the narrator on a lot of the Walt Disney nature films from the early 1960s. Plus, he was the spokesperson for Purina Dog Chow. If you ever saw those 1960s Purina Dog Chow commercials, all you add is love. That was Rex Allen. And his son went on to be a almost famous country singer in the 1980s. So we're cruising through Arizona, still hoping to get stopped by a cop at some point to go for the cycle. And we did wind up with an encounter with a Border Patrol agent. He pulled up. We were stopped probably along the interstate again. Pulls up. What are you guys doing? Taking train pictures. Okay, bye. And off he went. I'm like, drat. No ID check, no lights, no nothing. It doesn't count. So we were kind of bummed. We never did get our Arizona stop. Our final day out there was on the Copper Basin Railway out of Hayden Junction, Arizona. Copper Basin hauls, as the name implies, copper from the mine down to the smelter. And we had a pretty good day here chasing trains around.
One of my first jobs at AMD was putting two GP39 DCs in service on that line when it was Kennecott Copper.
Oh, cool.
They're their first air-conditioned cabs we ever built, prototypes.
How about that? It's certainly.
And the engineer refused to use them because he had to keep open the window for signals from the brakeman or conductor, and it was 125 degrees. So you didn't want to go back and forth between hot and cold.
Here's the train coming into the smelter area. Hayden Junction. At the time, the railroad was being run by a guy named Jake Jacobson, very famous short line railroad president, probably the most famous short line railroad president there was at the time. Jake was a friendly guy and loved showing off his railroad. He told his employees, he said, if somebody comes all the way out here to look at our railroad, he said, you treat them well. He said, if you have questions, answer their questions. We should be proud that they have enough interest to come out here and take a look at our railroad. Jake showed us the shop. He pointed this out to us. OSHA required that they have a hard hat policy posted at the shop entrance. So this was his hard hat policy. In this area, hard hats are optional. Respect common sense, safety, and a sincere caring about the well-being of your fellow worker is mandatory. Back down to one of the tunnels again. Cool operation. Here we see one of their gates has the Copper Basin Railway in metal worked on it there. And back down at the smelter.
When I was there in the early 70s, it took two railroads to get the train from Ray Mine to Hayden, Kennecott Copper to Ray Junction, then Southern Pacific from Wright Junction to Hayden.
You see some of the mine tailings off in the background. Very friendly railroad. Very busy when we were there. I understand they're not quite as busy now, but they're still working.
Steve, who runs the copper mine now?
Good question. I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
We finished off at the Copper Basin, and from here, I think we wound up driving into Phoenix and taking a red-eye flight home that night.
The answer about the mine, Willcox McMullen.
So that brought an end to our trip and brings an end to the show. The next program is going to be Wednesday, April 24th. And I'm going to sign off here for the folks who will be watching this on YouTube.